and being a longtime teacher, right away, if you come in and you get in the last 4 rows, you're a suspect. I'm not sure. I think some of those people have heard me speak multiple times, and they're trying to get at a good escape route. My name's Bill Travers. I'm the department chair for the North Penn High School Guidance Department. A lot of you have hopefully came to our college planning in February when we were talking about this whole process. I know a lot of people in talking to you since then have visited schools, have checked out a lot of websites. Well, now we're at that point where now it's time. It's time to apply to schools. And where a lot of people think it's the simplest thing in the world, it's not. But it's also not the most difficult thing if you follow the process. I see these people coming up on my left. I'm getting a little concerned here. There are some people we do want to introduce. First, I'd like to introduce, we have some of our counselors here who are going to really get involved when we get into the question and answer, and then they'll be available for you on an individual basis when we're finished. But I would like them to stand up if they wouldn't mind. To the far left, no, that's all right, well, I'll do it one at a time. I won't go too much in introducing you. Mr. Pat Brett, counselor out of Home Office A32. Ms. Jen Pischler out of Home Office F40, new with us this year, did her internship with us last year. To the far right, Mrs. Judy McGurman is in Home Office K31, was with us last year. We did a little shifting, we shuffle, you know, like a lot of those, you know, like the Eagle shuffle, we shuffle, right? And probably the most important person, and I'm glad she's here tonight, Mrs. Joanne Allender. Now, just stand up a second. They have to see who you are. She is our transcript person. She is the person that parents call. She is the person that students come and see constantly during the day, saying that this wasn't there or that was. You want to sit down now, huh? You're afraid. She does a tremendous job. She's extremely well organized in everything she does, and we could not accomplish what we accomplished without her expertise, okay? And then in the back, who's still handing out some papers from Home Office D103, Mr. Brian Daly, who's also the tallest of our counselors, right? So he'll be up here in a little bit. Okay, so college application process. Now, some of this we're going to try to go through, because in the email we sent, we said there's a big change, and here's the big change. And I'm going to ask this question. How many of you already have been on a common application? Okay, now, students, raise your hand. How many have been? Okay, if you've been on it, and you didn't have a brother or sister, you never did it before, here's what I'm hearing. It's good. They totally revamped it, and it went online August the 1st. Now, for those of us that have been using it over the years, there are some major, major changes. The good news is we're the ones, I'm saying the counselors, that have to adjust. The students don't have to adjust because they don't really have anything to compare it against. I think they've done a really, really good job. But what I want to do at the end, we kind of go through all our information, and then what I want to do is I really want to look at the common application. So everybody's clear. Parents are clear. Students are clear. When the common application is used correctly, it's a phenomenal tool. But if it's not used correctly because somebody didn't take the time to understand it, then it just becomes one problem after another. Okay, so here we go. Ta-da. First thing, complete your application online. Last year, what did we say? 90-some% of our applications, roughly, close to 90, were online applications. The common application now must be done online. There is no such thing as a paper application. Most colleges and universities don't want paper applications because it just is duplication of effort. Okay? So what we say is, fill out the application. Now here's the next part. check to see if there are any other forms to print out. University of Maryland has a specific form for freshman applicants. You must download it, you must bring it in. I can't tell you how many times students come in and go, what form? Because they didn't read the application. In other words, it says this, 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 this. So this isn't like, you know, texting or twitting or tweeting or whatever the heck you want to call it. This is about reading, R-E-A-D-I-N-G. You have to read the whole thing. And they put it in like words and sentences with periods and things like that. And the directions can be more than 150 characters, so keep that in mind. Key thing here, if there's anything that involves a school report, please, if you need to bring it in, which we'll refer to, bring it in. Okay. Number 2, obtain and sign. This is a records release form. We are not allowed to release records of any student unless the student, and if under 18 years old, the parent signed to give us the right to release the records. If the student is 18 years or older, parents, they do not need your signature. We wanted to make it mandatory to have both parent and student. We were informed by the legal people, you can't do that. So we'll follow the law, okay? On the flip side of this form is pretty much everything I'm going to just say in these early steps. Now, a couple of people have gone on the guidance website and they've downloaded a form there, which you'll see later on. That's our fault because we put it in our PowerPoint presentation last year. So if somebody did that, you're only doing it because we told you to do it. So we would rather use the pink form, and you only need one form. The first time you apply to a school or schools, you put the name of the schools on there. It's very simple to read, and then you just bring it into office F25. The lovely Mrs. Allender will be there to accept your pink form, okay? Records release forms are returned to transcript office. Step 3, okay, we already got down that, and then we get to 2 items at the bottom. An addressed envelope for each college transcript. Now, if you're doing this stuff, you know, here's what happens. This is what we need. And one thing we found out in past years, now think about it. People use email, they text, people don't write letters. So a talent that really most students don't have, and a lot of adults don't, they can't address envelopes. Now, the key thing is, and I didn't bring an envelope, but you put the address of where you're sending it, that goes in the middle of the envelope. It doesn't go up in the left-hand corner. Well, a couple people were doing that last year, okay? We say $2 processing fee for each transcript. Somebody says, why 2? We mail it. We mail the mid-year grades. We mail the final grades. Now, on that envelope that you bring in, here it is, no return address. No return address. We got a stamp. We put North Penn. It would look ridiculous to get your transcript from your house, okay? It even looks more ridiculous when, again, you put the school's name up in the upper left-hand corner. No stamp. Don't put a stamp on, because some applications, depending on supporting documents, maybe there's something a student did in the summer we want to include. Maybe they were going and taking some college courses. So we want to throw that transcript in there also. So the postage is metered. So you don't need to put any postage on it. Don't put a return address. Now remember, a legal size envelope. These are not thank you notes. Now, I'm not trying to be wise here, but you got to believe it. I mean, you get some of these things addressed to a college, university, right? I want to go to MIT. I'm going to give them an envelope about 2 foot or 2 inches by 3 inches. Also, don't give us 9 by 12 envelopes, okay? They're not good either. So a nice envelope would suffice, okay? That's the envelope. Now, sending SATs, ACTs. We don't handle that. You have to handle it. In other words, through College Board. How many of you are taking SATs in October? All right. Now, I don't have to answer this second question. How many of you that are taking SATs in October have not put down 4 schools to send them to for free? Now, students say this all the time. They go, well, I'm going to wait until I get the scores. Look, when you take it, you're done. It's it. The scores are going to be what they're going to be. If you take them on, I think it's October 5th or 6th, at 18 days, so 23rd or 24th, those scores are released. The minute they're released to you, they're released to the colleges and universities. Now, if you wait to get the scores and then you want them sent, it could be anywhere from 3 to 4 additional weeks from the time you see them and you actually go online to College Board and say, or ACT and say, I want them sent. So, if you can get them 4 for free, send them. Schools want official SATs. Now here's what I'm going to say. Those that want SATs. A new thing that's happening now is it's like schools are saying, we don't care about SATs. It's optional. Do you want this? Give us your SATs? Fine. If you don't, you don't have to. Okay? So it's called SAT or test score optional. All right? Some schools don't want them at all. So, you know, if they don't want them, don't send them to them unless they're really, really, really good, okay? And we said, college will accept either SATs or ACTs, and the rule seems to be that they'll use your best score. I'm gonna hold the questions. Unless it's really a good one, go ahead. And they're gonna send the ones before, too. Yeah, in other words, anytime you ask scores to be sent, if you've taken them 3 times, the 3rd time you take them, they not only send the ones you just took, they send the previous 2 again. So that way, if it's a different school, they get them again. And trust me, the colleges and universities, they don't lose them, okay? They're good that way. Good question. All right, mid-year reports. Key thing, we automatically send mid-year reports, okay? But we have to get to the middle of the year to send them, okay? I know that sounds like a little bit harsh, but we say that 2 weeks after the end of the first semester, we'll get them out. Here's what happens. Some schools start, it seems to me, in July. Some high schools around the country start in early August. Georgia started, I think, like the 2nd week or 1st week in August. Virginia schools are the 3rd week of August. So for those schools, the semester is a lot earlier. Colleges and universities that you're applying to, they just send emails out. So they say, hey, we need your mid-year grades. Don't panic. They understand that not every school's mid-year is at the same time. So we'll get them out. We don't miss on this. Trust me, we really take great pride in that. You know, so it's not like you're panicking where they said they got to get my mid-year grades. All right, we understand that, all right? Now, as you know, last year there was a thing called Hurricane Sandy. It wasn't my fault. I want to tell you that right now. I had nothing to do with it. I didn't mind staying home for 3 days, I will admit that, okay? But that pushed it back even further for us, okay? So we take care of that. You don't even have to ask for it. We don't need forms from Common App or anything along those lines, okay? Step 6. How about this? You're going through the whole thing. This process is over. It's only like 15 minutes. It's done. Now you collect your admits. Decisions are made. They're going to tell you, congratulations, we're really looking forward, you ready for this, to have you a part of the class of 2018. My God, it seems like a long way away. 2018. Now, they accept you, but you have till May 1st to give them money. Now, the only exception, you know, some of you know from our previous thing, unless you're doing an early decision application. If it's early decision, you said to them, if you tell me I'm in, I'm coming. And if you tell me by December, I'll let you know right away. That's a whole different thing. But in most, 99%, unless it's early decision, then you have till May 1st to ultimately tell them you're coming, okay? Now, here's what we say. It's coming around May 1st, or maybe it's March 1st, and you were accepted in 2 schools, and you know you don't want to go there. I feel that you have an obligation, and you should let them know as soon as you're absolutely sure they're not one of your schools. Now hear me out on this. Financial aid. Don't tell a school that you're not interested in coming till you've gone through the whole process of the schools that you're considering and that you really know what your financial aid package is. Because if you tell somebody I'm not coming, and then you try to go back and say, well, on second thought, they've moved on, okay? So remember, it's not like I'm saying I want you to be in a hurry, but please, we think it benefits them because there might be a student at that particular school that's on the wait list. And when you say you're not coming, they may go now offer an admission to somebody else, okay? And I may be that somebody else. So think of it that way. You say, I feel bad to tell them I'm not coming. Don't even worry about it. You're making somebody else very, very happy, okay? Last thing is, in May, and this is important for us. Is this the PIMS report? This is really what the PIMS report is. At the end of May, we asked the seniors, and they make an obligation. If you don't fill this thing out, then you can't graduate. It's a survey, because we need to know what people are doing, because we got to fill out some forms for the state and so forth. So it really helps us if we know where you're going. Here's what happens. Schools, not all of them, will send us a list. These are the students that applied from your school. These are the ones that were accepted. These were waitlisted. These were, rejected. In a lot of cases, they don't even tell us if you've accepted their acceptance. So we don't know that. Because now you get into that legal stuff. It's still saying, well, it's none of your business. We say, well, that's funny, because when you needed that transcript, it was our business. But now all of a sudden, and parents, you'll find out, right? When you're a son or daughter, and you may have had other ones go to college, and it's time you call up now, and you want to ask for grades, they go, well, it's none of your business, because the law says I don't have to tell you. But we'll take your money to pay for that child to go to our school. So, okay. Step 7, final grade report, my personal favorite. A copy of your final transcript must be sent to the college that you said you're going to. We can't send that until the transcript must have the graduation date on it. A lot of people don't know that. All right? Now here we go again. In order to do that, you must have graduation, okay? You cannot send the final transcript out with the graduation date prior to the day of graduation. So, last year it was the 18th. All things being equal, sorry to tell you this, I think it's going to be the 17th of June this year, all right? I think that's the last day it's scheduled on the calendar. So, what happens is, you graduate, we get your grades and everything, we get them together, and we try to get them out as fast as possible. But here's the good news. When schools send you emails and say, now that you've been accepted, you put the deposit in, you may be even going for your orientation, and now they send you an email. Unless we get your final transcript, you will not be allowed to come to our school. Right, okay? That's not true. Come on, they got your deposit, they got everything set up, they want you there. Don't be frightened by emails, and if you are, you can email me and then say, look, if you don't get this transcript there, we're coming up to get you, all right? And then I will get it taken care of, okay? Here's some key dates to remember. The big one. Now, some of you have already gone through this, so that's good. On October 8th here, you don't have to be subjected to me. We bring in a real professional to speak on financial aid, okay? That's on October the 8th, Tuesday. It's just the best date possible. Somebody said to me last year, you have everything on Tuesday. It's just the way it works out, unfortunately, for use of the facilities. Now, on October 9th, for those people that are still not sure what they're doing, and I recommend this even for seniors, there's a Pennsylvania Association of Admissions Counselors, PACAC. They have a big college fair with over 200 schools at Montgomery County Community College, right in their gymnasium area. It's a great college fair because it's put on by PACAC, so schools that sometimes don't go to like local high school fairs are more or less obligated to go there. And then, now this one I think is a little too late, November 10th on a Sunday, there's a national college fair at the Convention Center in Philadelphia. Now there's generally anywhere from 300 to 400 schools, technical schools, specialty schools, art schools, you name them, they're there. Because that's part of a national association of college admissions counselors. So even if for seniors you think, and I always say this, there's still some seniors, they're making some decisions, so feel free to go there, okay? And the key thing that we say is, don't forget, SATs coming up in October, you could still take them in November. It all depends on the deadline of the school that you're applying to. If the school has an application deadline of January 1st, you could take a SAT as late as December, okay? You could certainly take them in November. Remember, the October SATs were designed for seniors. That's the way it was set up, okay? All right, here it is, our personal favorite. The Common Application. It's accepted, now it's gotten in over 500 schools. It's 500 schools. And what it says is this, it's the Common Application. They came up with this idea somewhere around 1973. They started off, I think, 25, 30 schools, and they have grown and grown and grown. And what they did this year, for the first time, Temple University has gone on the Common Application, okay? Penn State does not, because they don't need to. University of Pittsburgh does not, right? I think. I better check myself. Who's applying to Pitt? They're not on it, right? Thank you. All right. Temple, that's a big you know, coup for College App, and probably a good move for Temple, too. Okay? Now, what the concept of College App is this. You fill out this application one time. You now can use that for every school that you apply to that uses the Common Application. So the information is filled out. Your family, you know, all this stuff, the essays, all that information is filled out one time. When you apply to a school, you basically pay the fee, unfortunately, say submit. All of a sudden, all that information goes to the college. Teacher recommendations go to the college. It's a great thing for teacher recs. They do it. It's in the database. You apply to 6, you know, Common App schools. They only have to do one recommendation. There's no envelopes involved, anything. It's all done electronically, okay? So we think it's a good thing. Now, here's the problem. There is one issue that we still have not come to grips with here. And what you have to understand, it's a product of us being such a large school. There's no other way I can explain it. We really, really tried very hard in the last year to try to get around this, and that is we, with the Common App, cannot electronically send your transcript with the secondary school report. Now here's why, and I think you need to know this. A counselor must fill out a school report form. So Mr. Brett, Mr. Daly, Mrs. Gurman, right, Mrs. Pichler, everybody, Dr. Yetter, Mrs. Pike, Ms. Dieg, Mr. Feeney, Mr. Wilson. I forget anybody. I miss Mrs. McCreary. If they fill it out and they want to send it electronically, they then have to load up the transcript, okay? Now, when you have 10 to 11 people doing the same thing, what happens is you're prone to having errors. Not that anybody's going to make an error. What happens, Mrs. Allender, the lovely Mrs. Allender, and myself are the two people that are responsible for, how many was it last year? 3,700 transcripts going out. So if something's wrong and it doesn't happen, which it didn't do, then it's strictly, we're the two people because we have control. All right, so what does that mean for you? What it means is this. And I can't show you this. How many students have gone on and done the application already? Okay? There's a part that you get to, it's called school report. Now you're going to invite two counselors, not two counselors, yeah, two teachers, 3 teachers, which we'll get to, and you must invite your counselor. Now, you put the counselor's email address, it gets sent to the counselor, and the counselor is asked, will you complete this online or offline? We say offline. When we say offline, an email comes back to the student and says, your counselor is an offline provider. Therefore, you must download this form, it's 3 pages, and bring it into your counselor. That's it. That's the only change for us, right? Okay? Now, some of you may have friends that go to schools that use Naviance. Anybody? All right, now listen, Naviance is good, but Naviance has got an issue too. If you are a Naviance school, you cannot do the teacher recommendations through Common App without going through like 5 or 6 extra steps, which I found very, very interesting, you know, because a lot of schools use Naviance and there's a lot of good things about it. So, you know, that's for another time. Okay, so let's go back. This is the only thing that I can't emphasize enough. When you do the Common App, the secondary school report, because we can't attach electronically a transcript with it, they don't accept it. So in other words, if you submit the secondary school report to a college and university and it doesn't have a transcript attached, they kick it back, all right? Now, that hasn't been a problem for us, I'm being honest with you. But the only thing that I'm saying is the responsibility is on the student. Now, I want to give you one other little hint. There is a hint if you haven't done the Common App. And this is in the help part of the Common App. 2 ways you can download the form. Put the counselor's email, send them the invite. They tell you we're an offline provider, then that directs you to download it. Or you submit the counselor's name without an email address. If you submit the counselor's name, submit it to Common App without the counselor's email address, then you can download the school report at that point, okay? I mean, that's really the only thing for me that's probably a little disconcerting, all right? Essays. Unless there's a specific question to respond to, who should you write about? You. Write about you if you get the opportunity. On any college essay, write about you. Who do you know better than you? You know? Don't write about something else, you know? You'll hear some people say, don't write about an event. Don't write about a life-changing event. They don't want to hear that. That's an absurd statement, anybody tells you that. If you've had a life-changing event, and I'm serious on this, where you've had maybe somebody, an illness in the family, a death, somebody close to you, and that's what I call a life-changing event, and that's had tremendous impact on who you are and what you do and your experience in school, then to me, I'm a college admissions person, I'd like to know that. Because they're trying to get to know you. Like, what's it about you that these grades don't tell me? So, please, you. They read a lot of essays. Okay, now here's the thing. Don't go crazy about the essay. And I said this in the spring program. Here's why. If you're rich, you can get somebody to write an essay for you. How are they going to know? They're not, unless they got a camera in your house, right? If you have a brother or sister that just went to college and they happen to be an English major, right, you get them to write it for you. How are they going to know that? Now, here's what you got to be careful about, and the students know what I'm talking about. A lot of these colleges now are taking essays and throwing them into turnitin.com, you know? And lo and behold, they're going like, whoa, wait a minute, this essay looks very, very familiar, all right? So I do recommend one thing. If you had a brother or sister that got into a very prestigious school and you thought they had a great essay, please do not use it and change the name in there, okay? Because they're kind of slick too, all right? Don't have this perception that the people at the college, end are like, what's going on here? No, they got some sharp people there, okay? But here's the thing. It's your grades, your scores, things you do. You are not going to get into a school based on a single essay. I believe that, and I've talked to admissions people all the time. Is it part of the whole thing? Absolutely. That's good. I think your teacher recommendations are important, and here's why. Those people that you asked to do the recommendation, you asked them. They've worked with you for 180 days, maybe 360 if you had them twice. They can give some insight into you as a student, your work ethic, your insight into the material. Those recommendations, they take, a step ahead of the essay. We agree, Mr. Daly? Absolutely. And those of us that were very good in math, we hope so, okay? Because maybe we weren't great writers. Okay, here's the key thing about the Common App. You can use basically the same essay multiple times, okay? So you only have to do one. Now, hear me out here. Some colleges and universities have a specific essay that they want. It's part of what they call a supplement. So here's your Common App. You send it all in. But maybe the University of X says, we need you to do this one. And then maybe their essay is like, what would your life be like if you were a tree? Something like that. And then you're supposed to project, I would just be there, or what if you were a rock? Now, maybe they're looking for some insights. I don't know if that's true. Okay, let's talk about teacher recommendations. Now, remember, I'm doing two things here. We haven't really looked at the Common App yet, so I hate to tell you that. 2 letters of recommendation should be from teachers. Somebody says, I work a job. I'm really good at it. My employer, right, could write a good recommendation, but they're not talking about you as a student. I would call that an additional recommendation. Teachers come first. I'm a great athlete, right? My coach really knows me. I work, 365 days a year, and I totally understand that. But they're not, this is an academic recommendation, okay? Now, if somebody that coaches you also happened to teach you, right, that's a different story. So if your baseball coach happened to be your English teacher, or your lacrosse coach happened to be your social studies teacher or something like that, then that's a different story, because now they can do both things, okay? Now, our teachers typically, right, write in a letter format. Now, there's some schools that really don't want teacher recommendations. Penn State doesn't want any, all right? They're strictly numbers. When you have 80,000 applications, right, they don't have time to read anything. They just want to know what your rank is, what your GPA is. Here's my SATs. What campus do you want to go to? And we get it done. Now, again, Penn State, if there's special circumstances, then maybe they want to know. And that's where I talk about those special things. You'll get a chance to put some stuff in there, okay? Also, be sure to give teachers ample time to complete their recommendations. Now, as a teacher, what I would tell students to do is come up, ask me. I'd like to do it, fine. Be cordially persistent, okay? Cordially persistent. There's a fine line between persistence and annoyance. Make sure you straddle that line, okay? As a teacher, I would tell my students, feel free to come up to me and say, so how's that recommendation going? And I go, really good, really good. I'm working on it. Just like, how's your homework going? Really good. I'm working on it. Okay. But don't come up at the last minute. And also, it doesn't have to be an English teacher. Other people can write, okay? Also, generally, it helps to be somebody that you know is going to write a good recommendation. Now, you can't go up to them and go, are you going to write a good recommendation or what? No, you can't do that. You just kind of have a feel, right? that you say, look, I did a real good job in this class. I kind of got recognized. I think this will be good. And then plus, take into account the personality of the person you're asking to write the recommendation. Are they going to elaborate, or are they going to be good? That's it. Good. That's all there is to it, you know. You want somebody you think will say good things about you, okay? Also, anytime you have a chance to waive your right to see something, always waive your right to see it. Now, by that meaning you give up your right to see anything that's written by a teacher. When you do that and a school knows it, then they feel that the person that's sending something in is going to be more honest in their evaluation, okay? Now, all that means is you said you don't want to see it. It doesn't mean that the teacher, you know, one time I had a student, I used to let my students see it. And the kid said, look, I can't look at this. I signed a thing. I waived the right to see it. I said, no, you waived the right to see it. I didn't waive the right to let you see it. There's a difference. So if the teacher says you can look at it, that's okay. That doesn't violate anything. I don't think. No, I'm kidding. It does and it doesn't. All right. Resources. North Penn High School Guidance website. Okay, great. But here's the big one for me. And I've talked about this many, many times. Some of you come into College Career Center. On College Board, there's a site called Big Future. I mean, it gives you everything from the college process A to Z, paying for school, you know, all kinds of resources. And they've done a really good job at College Board. It's free. You can use it, okay? The other thing is, if you have questions, talk to the admissions office, right? Don't listen to the person down the street who had a cousin, who had a sister, who had a brother, who applied to that school in 1973, who told you that the way to get accepted is to put cash in an envelope and send it to them. Now, that might have worked in 73, but now you have to give them your credit card number. All right. So go to the school itself. Also, we always recommend if there's a question, call, sometimes make 2 calls. Always make sure you get the same answer twice, because you don't necessarily, and I don't necessarily know, when I call the admissions office, I always ask, who am I speaking to? If you go on a college's website, and this is important, most schools have counselors, admissions counselors assigned to certain counties or schools. So if I'm calling, say, Shippensburg, I'm looking, I'm finding out who is the admissions person responsible for Montgomery County. That's who I want to talk to, because that's the person that's ultimately going to look at, you know, my application, okay? And you can get, we said, college representatives. We still have them coming in. They're always good to talk to. And of course, our guidance staff. Here's the thing I think about our guidance staff, that they were really good. And here's what it is. We don't say that we know everything, okay? And if we don't have an answer to your question, then we're going to go somewhere to find that answer. Sometimes what I have found, some of the students, at least in my role, particularly in the College Career Center, I've counted on them where they brought up something. I don't want to single out one guy, but I had a meeting with somebody a week ago, and we got talking in that whole thing about APs. Now, he had visited 5 schools, and he got a whole different perspective of, you know, how schools use AP courses. And it's not the same, which we've sort of been saying, it's not the same at every school, okay? But he kind of gave me some insight that I'm going to use for, you know, things down the road. Okay. Admissions factors, we already know that. It's your grades, how you perform, the rigor of your courses, your SAT stuff, and all that other stuff. Standardized testing, these are related topics. We don't want to worry about financial aid. Big thing is get in, kids, and let your parents pay for it, okay? That's the deal, okay? Now, remember this, and here, seriously, what you should do not, as you're going through this process, and I'm being serious here now, don't apply to schools with one eye on the cost of the school. Apply to schools that you think you're truly interested in, that you think based on your numbers you can get accepted into. Then, and we say this all the time, then the family has to have a discussion after all the numbers are rolled in as to what is the best situation for you academically, financially, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that's the tough one. Look, I'll help any student do anything, but when it gets into a situation where somebody comes to me or comes to one of the counselors and say, look, I really want to go to this school, but my parents say, no, it's too much, I got to go here. I can't get in that discussion, you know, because I'm not paying for the other half, you know. So I think that that's something where the family, and I think as kids, you have to respect that, you know, unless you're going to go out and get a full-time job while you're going to school. All right, here it is. Okay, now here's what we decided to do, and I hope you can see this. Common application. This is what it looks like. Students, true or false? That's right. When you go on, this is what it looks like. And pretty much it's always looked this way. Now, you notice, they call it a single landing page. These are not my words, okay? So don't think I came up with this. Single landing page, which means if you're a student, if you're a university, all right, they're the members, and the recommenders would be the counselors or the teachers. They all start at the same spot, okay? You'll also notice that the help center is right in the same spot, which I really think is great. This is the stuff that I think is the changes that are great for the students and the parents, okay? They're also on Facebook and Twitter. So if you know what you're doing on Facebook and Twitter, you can do all that kind of stuff. If you don't, stay away from it, okay? I'm not getting on Twitter at all. I'll end up probably nobody from our school will go anywhere by the time I'm done. All right. Now, the reason that the live social media is good is because students and or parents or anybody can get quick responses to things, all right? You know how it is. You try to call somebody, you know, and they start playing music, and the next available operator will be with you, which, you know, they don't even have any operators, but they got a lot of music, okay? But when you get on a live chat, hi, this is Rick. How are you doing? Good. Want to buy a refrigerator? You know, or something like that. So this is good stuff. Now, here it is. The application's really broken up into 3 sections. The Common App, what they call the dashboard, okay, which gives you a status overview, and your colleges, where you're going to find out what's going on with your applications. So again, any school that gives you a choice of using the Common App or not, use it. Now remember, if you're only going to use the Common App for one school, that's a different story. If it's one school or the school's application, then I'm going to use the school's application. We're talking about when you're applying to multiple schools that use this, okay? So here it is. The tabs, now I hope you can see this. We're looking at like the 3, right, which is common application. So the profile, they want to know about your family, they want to know about your education, your testing, your activities, and your writing. So here's the household. Now notice on the right-hand side, it's just like, how many have ever filled out the FAFSA? Okay, parents understand. The FAFSA's done a great job where every time you're filling out a question, there's like an explanation right on the right. You don't even have to go look for it. Well, that's what they're doing here. They're saying to you is, you know, Miss or Mrs., half siblings, more than 5 siblings. They got all kinds of stuff there. So it's good explanation on the right, okay? Now, left navigation menu displays main pages within the Common App, okay? Each page contains several sections, but displays only one page at a time, which I think is good. Now, I can tell you, I've been looking at this for 4 days, so, you know, if I'm going through this and you're going, I don't know what he's talking about, trust me, that was me 5 days ago. You know, I had to get a student to let me see what their account looked like, you know, because I can't get on other than this. Okay. Smart dynamic questions. Example below shows display for married parents, okay? Changing marital status to divorced prompts new questions. So if all of a sudden status is divorced, then you see they add some other stuff. Do you wish to list any step-parents? How many? New school lookup makes finding a high school much easier. Now here's what used to happen. Student needed to put it in, need to put in their CEEB code, which is 392155, which I know you all know, okay? Well, now what happens, once you get the right school, it puts all the data in for you. So, look at all these schools called Fairfax High School. There's Allendale Fairfax, Betty Fairfax, Fairfax, Fairfax. I don't see my high school on the list, and I was homeschooled, all right, in Fairfax. So, what happens is the high school name, as the student begins to type the name, the list of options starts to shrink. And as the more letters are typed in, the list shrinks till eventually, right, it gets your school. And our school obviously would be North Penn, and it would say where we are, this is our CEB code, and then you're going to do the part which says when did you enter. Now, here's one thing that you're here, this is great. Anytime you're applying, right, you can put North Penn High School, so you're going to be the class, you entered what, this is now what, 13, right? 12, wasn't it 11 when you came in here? Yes? September of, right? 1911, I wish. 2011. Okay. Your transcript will have your 9th grade grades. Whatever you do in your application, do not refer to Penndale, Pembroke, or Penfield. You go to North Penn High School, but put the right dates. So the dates are going to be September of 2011, right, is when you entered here, right? But whatever you do in anything, those of you that are athletes, getting involved in that NCAA clearinghouse, do not put that in 9th grade you went to Penndale, because they read it like you went to another high school, and then they're looking for another transcript, okay? If the school can't be found, the student can enter the information manually, okay? And the same thing for homeschool. Now, here's the testing page, and I think this is interesting. Testing page is driven by what a student wishes to report. Do you wish to self-report your standardized test scores? You don't have to. You can say, no, I don't want to, because I'm going to send them to them anyway, so I don't want to self-report. So if you put no, that's the end of it, right? Now, it's driven by what you wish to report. So let's say you took the SATs and you took the ACTs, but you only want to report one, then that's all you have to self-report. In other words, this isn't like a moral question here where you say, well, I took all these tests, should I report them? If you want to, because it's what you're reporting. So now, if you notice here, you have SAT tests, subject tests. You can also, what? Report AP tests on here, self-report. If you're one of our English language learners and took the TOEFL test, which we recommend for a lot of kids that have been in this country less than 5 years, gives them an equal opportunity because they can take basically the test in their native language, you can put that down. Okay, so it's driven by what you want to report. Now, the bonus reminder. I didn't put this up here, so, you know, I wish I did. Test optional flexible. All right, now here's the deal. Once an application is submitted, a student can return to the app and edit it for future submissions to other colleges, okay? So what that means is you have sent something to School X. Now all of a sudden you want to change something. You can change it for the remaining schools. You can't go back to the one that you already sent in. Is that understood? And with common application, you can apply to 6 schools, but you don't have to apply to them all at once. It's whenever you feel like it, okay? Student can return to the testing page and change the testing response to no, I do not wish to self-report, or keep the response as yes, but elect to report different scores. So this is something, if you're self-reporting, you can play around with this stuff. You say, well, I don't want to send those AP scores to that school, but I'll send them to this school, all right? And then you can read. Answering no or electing to report a different set of tests will hide but not erase any tests the students may have entered, okay? So in other words, if you put in the test scores, but you say, I don't want them sent, they don't disappear. They're still in your database. It's just that they're not going to be sent. And any test scores entered in a previously submitted application can be retrieved, right? Now that's the key thing, can be retrieved by changing the testing response back to yes. Now hear that out. If you send them, you can't pull them back, right? Make sense? But if I didn't send them and now I want to send them, I can send my scores to a school that I already applied to. Does that make sense? I hope. All right. Activities page remains largely unchanged. You know, use the same pick list as today's application. The activity name pick list appears if as a student, like you're an athlete. Okay, up and down arrows let the students rearrange the order of their activities. Okay, 50 character text field, 150 characters when they ask for details. The activity type and the activity name do not count as your characters. All right, so they say athletics, JV varsity. That doesn't count because that's their words. Okay? Essay changes. So here's the prompts. And you say them, new prompts, new instruction. Now here's what they've done that's different. There's a maximum of 650 words on an essay, okay? No more. If you go over it, they tell you got too many words, cut some of them out, okay? Also, the application displays the word count, which you can see, and at the top where it's red, it says add 175 or more words to meet the 250 word minimum. So you can't do an essay that's less than 250, you can't do more than 650, okay? Students receive an error message if the essay is too short. It's like, this program, Travis, you're going too short, keep it going. Or the other one, yo, this is really getting long here, right? If cutting, now here's the other thing. If cutting and pasting, you didn't used to be able to do this before. You had to upload an essay, right? Now that's a big change for the kids this year. So what happens is, whoops, let me go back. You can now, right, type right there your essay, or you can do an essay somewhere else and copy and paste it right on there. And then when you paste it on there, it'll tell you if you've exceeded the limit or if you're under the limit, okay? That's a big thing, because anytime you're trying to upload something, sometimes that creates problems. Okay, now here's what the dashboard does. It displays an overview of the application status for each college on a student's list. So Gettysburg's the school. Clicking the triangle now expands the view of the school. So it's Gettysburg. I click the triangle, see they're going horizontally, now I make it vertical. It tells me regular decision I applied, this is what I'm doing, I submitted it, it gives me everything I've done, but I look down at the bottom and it says writing supplement was incomplete, okay, at that point. Also, my college is where students go to take action on tasks. So here it is. My colleges, I'm looking at Connecticut College. It tells me all the things I'm supposed to do, where their contact information is, right? Application deadlines, things that are required, okay? And then finally, each college gets to select the question it asks. So a different school may ask you different questions, all right? So that's where they're helping the colleges out. Instead of Common App saying to each school, right? All right, here's the questions, you use them. So when you go onto that Gettysburg thing, this is like what I call the supplement. There's some things that Gettysburg wants to know, or some school. The writing supplement allows each college to ask short answers and essay questions. They can either be a text entry or an upload or both, depending upon the college's preference. So I think that's good. Note that while college-specific questions are submitted along with the common application, the writing supplement is submitted afterwards, okay? You'll get that when you look at it. And that's it, okay? Now, that was easy, wasn't it? All right. Now, here's what we're going to do. Mr. Daly, come on up first. Look, I woke him up. okay? Now, what we want to do here, now at this point, we're going to open this up for questions, general questions. We also want to thank NPTV for doing the taping here. Now, what we said, because they do such a great job, and they're going to, now they told me they're going to edit a lot of this stuff out. And if they don't, I'm going to be really upset. But we said that we'll take a few questions, and then they're going to fade to dark, right? So if you stay for other questions and you say, well, what happened to those questions? You know, we think they've done a great job to come here, you know. Our terrific camera person following me all around, you know, Mr. Chris Dorr, Mr. Bob Gilmer, Ms. Mary Fakish back in the studio. We want to thank them for, you know, taking the time to be here. So this thing, not only, I hate to tell you this now because you're here, but this is going out live, right? But we didn't tell you that. I didn't know it till this morning, so it's not like I deceived you, right? But it would look kind of funny if I'm talking here and there's all these empty seats, you know? But this will be shown again. So if you fell asleep during half of it, right, then you can pick it up from that point and go from there. All right, so first question. Oh, yes, this is set up. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
You know, okay, go ahead. Yell it out.
can you explain how to handle the online certification for college application with those schools that require
All right, teacher recommendations. Online common application, and that's a good question because we really didn't mention this. When you're doing teacher recommendations, paper variety. The student goes to the teacher. Now this is where you need the stamp. Put the name of the school, its address, admissions, put a stamp on it. Don't put a return address, right? Just stay away from return addresses. Now, if a teacher's doing 3 paper applications, in other words, non-common app, you give each of those recommenders 3 envelopes addressed to the 3 schools, give it to them, they'll put it in there, and then they'll send it in. And I'll tell you what, we have not had a problem with teacher recommendations since we went to this process. So if it's common app, no need for envelopes. If it's a school that you're not using common app, but they want teacher recommendations, it's the responsibility of the student to give the teacher an envelope addressed to the admissions office with a stamp on it, hand it to the teacher, and trust me, they'll get it done. Go ahead. Yes. Yeah, they can do that. The teacher's going to do that. I know what your question is. Like if I did it in the common app, you know, electronically, can the teacher still use the same one? Absolutely, and that's what they do. They can do that. When they're writing, when they're doing the teacher recommendation online, they can download that themselves, which they do. They keep it. Go ahead. Brian, you want to answer? You want him to answer up here? I'm going to walk around. Go ahead. Mr. Daly's going to help us out. Go ahead.
For early decision versus normal, do we do this process twice? So you do the whole thing, steps 1 through 4 for the early decision, and then go back and do it again if that student does not get to the early decision school.
Okay. Now you mean for, if I apply to a school early decision, and this is what I think I'm getting the question. I've applied, and they say, no, we're not accepting you early, but then they automatically put you in the regular admission. Yes, but here's the thing. Even though you're applying early decision to a school or, you know, one school, still go through the process. Apply to other schools. Yeah, absolutely, I would. All right? Because here's the thing. I'm not waiting around for the early decision in December before I apply to everybody else. All early decision says is, if I get accepted, I'm coming there. So therefore, I must withdraw other acceptances or other applications. So I'd withdraw them. Don't wait. Don't hold up on that.
Yeah, they don't have to be at the same time. You can do the early decision application first, and then a week or 2 later follow up with the other college applications. They don't all have to be done at the same time.
Okay, go ahead.
The $2 processing fee, is that to North Penn School District?
The $2 processing fee. You can do it if you're going to make it in check, North Penn High School. Cash, we'll take that too. Now, we're legitimate. I mean, seriously, you know. This is a nice coat I got. I got that off the, no, I didn't do that. Oh, you're still taping? I thought you left. Okay. I got to watch it. No, but if you are, make it out to North Penn High School. Who's got a question? I'm coming over. Go ahead.
While Mr. Travers heads over there, there is one point I want to clarify. As you are prompted to print things out, the secondary school report, anything you're prompted to print out and bring into your counselor, actually bring it into Mrs. Ollender's office. It's in your student's best interest to do that instead of it coming through the 11 different counselors here. Miss Allender records the date that she received it. She will also record the date that it left our building. And whenever we send transcripts out, we send out a self-addressed stamped postcard with it. So as soon as the school gets your transcript, they stamp that postcard with a date and they mail it back to us. So we have a date that it entered our building, left our building, and arrived at the college or university to which you're applying. These colleges and universities are handling a tremendous volume of paperwork. So there's a lot of times where you're continuing to get emails and it's saying, we don't have your transcript, we don't have your secondary school report. And Ms. Allender has a record that they have received it. And they just either haven't scanned it in or made its way to your file yet. So it's really important that when you turn anything in, it starts in the transcript office. She forwards it to the respective counselor to be processed. We can follow up with the student if necessary. We send it back to the transcript office where either Joanne or Mr. Travers processes it, gets it in the mail, records that date, and then records the date that postcard comes back to.
I think that's a great point, because the key thing I think that he said is a lot of times we have a record that it's there, they're claiming it's not there. Now, we'll send it again, but we want you to understand, just because you get an email saying they don't have it, you know, we always check our files to see if we have it. The other thing that Mr. Daly mentioned, I didn't mention on the transcript, is we say at the bottom of our form, allow 3 weeks from the time you get it in to the time it goes out. Now, that doesn't generally take that long, but there's a couple of times that, right, there's peak times, generally in like the mid to late October into November, that we're processing so many so quickly that we like to hold ourselves and let you know that you bring it in. You know, if you have a date that you need that thing out by November 1, you better have that thing to guarantee it. Always have it in 3 weeks prior to the date you want it in that school's possession. But here's one key thing now. With doing everything online, once you submit your application, you've applied, right? It's not like the whole application's going in. So always remember, if the only thing that's outstanding is the teacher recommendation or the transcript, that's never being held against the student. So that's what the advantage of doing things electronically. The deadlines say November 15th. Once you've submitted your application, you've met the deadline, regardless of the supporting documents. Okay? Question?
Yeah, so if your child went to multiple high schools, do you select them both on the Common App?
Yeah, that's a good question, because this comes up. Now, what happens is if somebody went to multiple high schools, we have a transcript, right? And our transcript has, you know, 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade, and it states where you went to school. Like we do put 9th grade, Penfield, Pembroke. Now, what I always say, this is just my personal opinion, I say I wouldn't do that unless they ask you to do it. In other words, if our transcript gets it done, then that's all you have to worry about. Because what students find out, when you got to go back to your other school, it's very difficult because you're not there. You know? Now, one thing, if you have a teacher, somebody came here like in the last year, and maybe there's a great teacher from another school, you could feel free to use that person as a recommender. Doesn't have to be in this building. Go ahead.
Can we give Mrs. Allender $2 and get a copy of the transcript that the colleges are going to see so we can see exactly what the transcript says to see if there's any mistakes or anything?
You don't even have to give her $2, right, Mrs. Allender? If a student comes in and says, can I get an unofficial transcript, or they come and see me in the College Career Center, probably she would rather you come and see me, right? I can do that for you, yeah, because I agree with you. That way, before it's sent out, you can look at it, absolutely. Now, the $2 is really for the application. So if they're coming in and they're bringing in 3 and they're saying, can I get an unofficial, we can do that. Questions? Oh, come on now. There's got to be some questions here. We weren't anywhere near that good. Counselors, you got any questions or anything you want to add? That was a good point, Mr. Dale. Who's got the question over here? All right, I'm here.
Some colleges say they don't want recommendations or they only want one. If you send 2, do they get mad at you for it or, you know?
I encourage you to follow what the college is asking for. It demonstrates that the student knows how to follow directions. You don't want to overwhelm them with paperwork. If they're saying they want 1 recommendation, I would stick with 1, and usually make it from a teacher of an academic subject. And I think that brings up a good point. Every college is a little bit different in terms of what they're looking for. Just follow their directions, whatever they're asking for, because that's what they're looking for. They want to make sure that the students know how to follow directions.
Go ahead, I'm coming over. State schools, oh, you don't have to follow me. State universities say they don't want recommendations. Now, they don't say they don't want them. They'll tell us they don't look at them. Worst thing, sometimes I'll say, send it. They don't look at it because they don't have time to.
If a student is taking a high school class that's giving them college credit, say from Gwynn and Mercy, do they need to provide Gwynn and Mercy as a name as well as getting the transcript from that college?
Okay, the concurrent enrollment, which you're referring to, right? Okay, so here's what we did last year for all our students. Concurrent enrollment, our students that are taking a course at either Arcadia, Gwynn and Mercy, Penn State Abington, or Montgomery County Community College. Our suggestion is that when the first, semester is over, to get that transcript, right? Now, if the deadline for the student's application can allow us to put a copy in there, we would do it, right? Now, what some schools are saying, the college or universities wants an official transcript from, say, Gwynn and Mercy. I think that the more important thing is to let them know that he's taking that college course. Okay. There's some concurrent enrollment that's done at North Penn High School. Well, first of all, it's going to be on his transcript for us, right? But no, we won't put that on there. The other thing is sometimes with concurrent enrollment, here's what you got to understand. Some colleges will recognize the credit for college credit under one of 2 conditions. 1, it can't be taken on the high school campus. 2, if it's taken on the high school campus, it can't be taught by the high school staff. It has to be the outside staff. Now, hear me out. Gwynn and Mercy's going to honor it, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that other schools, they won't necessarily honor that. So when you look at their admissions website, they'll state that. Because concurrent enrollment's a big thing right now. But some of the colleges, so I think it's on in an individual basis. I can, talk to you about that. Go ahead.
What about the credits through the Engineering Academy?
Okay. Now, the credits through the Engineering Academy, here's what ends up happening. That's all, like, in essence, separate things where when you go to the school that you get accepted, right? Particularly if it's a school that's involved with that the whole project Lead the Way, they then can honor those credits. But what I'm saying to you is that's not going to impact on the way we send your transcript. That's something between you and the school, and we're not in the middle of that. Does that make sense? You can, or you can send it separately. See, it's stuff you already got credit for, yes? Yes. See, I would want you to try to include it when we send your transcript, think that would be good. Go ahead.
How do the colleges work the early admission? So if you send if you're the first one in, are you the first one considered, or do they wait till they have all of them in and then consider it, or do they mix them in with the general? How does that work?
You want to take that? And then we can all add to this.
I'm not quite sure I
All right,
followed.
in other words, is it first in, first out? I'll use that thing. So if I get my application in, okay, I'm going to use Penn State as an example. Penn State runs in what I call groupings. It's from the time they open up till October 31st. That's group one. They're all treated together. So if I got mine in September 1st, doesn't mean they're going to look at mine necessarily and make a decision before somebody that got it in, you know, October the 10th. I'll just use that. What Penn State says is they will make an initial evaluation on all those before they look at the November 1 to November 30th. Then they'll make an evaluation on those, and then anything from December 1 on is treated in like the last group. Now, what we have found, like I'm just using Penn State because we have a lot of applicants, sometimes a student gets it in that first group. They don't really ultimately get accepted till maybe January. It's taken that long, right? Because maybe they're just kind of taking their time evaluating. So what happens is this. You want to talk about a rolling admission school, it is an advantage. So Westchester, Shippensburg, Kutztown, they're on rolling admission. As they get applications in, they evaluate them, they accept kids, right? So I say, think of it as a box, a giant box with admissions in it. And that the longer you wait, you may be a good student, but they don't have that many, you know, invitations to come to their school left, right? So if the school is rolling admission, you know, then I say the sooner the better, and it is an advantage. In other words, I get it in, they can make a decision. Now, the decision could be positive or negative. They're not going to wait around to see, like, well, let's hold up and see who comes in December, because they want to fill their class, right? And it hasn't hurt any of those schools. Delaware used to be rolling admission, but they got away from it because they felt that they were accepting students, and then kids that were applying later, they didn't have spots for them. Go ahead. Good. We said you were going to ask a question. I've been this.
If you submit your application in October and then take SATs in November, will colleges be able to see those standardized test scores?
Okay. If the application's in October, but is it rolling admission or is it a deadline? See, that's the key. The key to me is if it's rolling, which means now I get it in October, they may have made a decision before you get those next ones in. Now, if it's a January 1 deadline for your application, let's say they don't do anything until everybody gets them in, then you could take one in October, you could take it in November. See, I think it's an individual school thing. I would talk to them. Go ahead.
So if you're a borderline student and the school has rolling admissions, get your application in early. If you're worried that you don't align with their admission criteria, get it in early.
As you're walking out, we got some of these back there, unless people took them.
A lot of colleges told us they looked at the weighted GPA.
Yep.
But North Penn's on a 6.0 scale, and they're only looking at a 5. Is there some kind of conversion?
Now, here's the thing. I mean, I'm glad you asked that question. It's about the weighted scale. Every school has a different weighted scale. But the schools are used to the different weighted scales. So, like, we're on a 6.0. Now, on the transcript, we put the 6.0, your weighted, we put your weighted rank, and we put your unweighted GPA out of 4.0. We do not put an unweighted rank. People say, why do you do that? Because it doesn't tend to benefit our students. We find that kids that have high GPAs, there's a thing with unweighted, they don't get any advantage, right? Now, what happens is, we're on a 6.0. Some schools are on a 5.0. Some are on a 4.5. They get to know our school, right? Now, what they don't do, and I want you to know this, those of you math people, they don't set up a proportion. You can't do it proportionally. You can't say, this is to 6.0 as X is to 4.0, and then cross multiply and divide. It doesn't work that way. And how you know that is if you look at the weighted versus the non-weighted GPA, it doesn't work out, proportionally. So I'll tell you what, we haven't had a problem with that. Now, Penn State, which is one of our bigger schools in Temple, Penn State tells us they don't tell us how, they take our GPA and they sort of convert it into a 5.0 scale, right? Yeah, now they're okay, because there are actually some schools that are on a 7.0 scale, so I don't know how they do it. Go ahead. Mr. Muth, you got a question? You think I was going to let you I wasn't going to mention your name? Do you have a question, sir? Go ahead. Hold on. Don't move that camera. I'll be.
Preference for declaring a major or not declaring a major?
That's a good question. Declaring a major or not declaring a major? Go ahead, Mr. Daly.
I encourage students, if they know what they want to study, they should declare that as a major. The benefit is that you're going to get lined up with a counselor at the college who's familiar with that major. If you want to be a business major, you're going to be lined up with a counselor who's familiar with the business internships, the business classes, the summer opportunities. Whereas if you go in undecided, you might get paired with a more general counselor who might not be familiar with some of the specifics of what your anticipated career field might be. If you're truly undecided, say undecided. If you know what you want to go into, I encourage students to mark that so that you're paired with the appropriate advisor and you get the appropriate counseling right out of the gate.
The other thing is sometimes some students, they pick undecided because they think they can't get into the major. But you got to be careful, because there's some schools that will tell you that if you don't come in that major, the opportunity to get into it afterwards is not easy. Like there's some schools, I can think of one school, I won't mention it, but they have a very famous school of foreign service. Now they tell you straight up, don't come in our business or what they call their college and then think you can transfer in after your first year, because they tell you it doesn't happen. Well, the reality is it does happen, but they don't advertise it, and it doesn't happen that often. Because what they don't want is they don't want kids saying, all right, I want to be undeclared, and as Mr. Daly said, well, then you're going to take a lot of foundation courses where maybe the major you want, they've moved ahead already, so it puts you at a disadvantage. So I think unless you're not sure, now if you're totally not sure and you want to put undecided or undeclared, whatever they call it in a different school, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, but just don't do it because you think it's going to give you an advantage. That's what we hear a lot. Kids say, well, now, I'm going to say this. I want to be a nuclear physicist, but I don't think I'll get in. So I'll apply undeclared, right? Okay, fine. Now I get in, but it doesn't mean I'm ever going to get in there. And I'd hate to see somebody go to a school thinking that they could change majors when they can't. Because then they're going to have to change schools maybe, right?